Alright, so basically I'm going to show you guys how I play this current build that I made. It's basically a Shatter slash Phantasm build. There's a couple of tricks to it. So far this is the hardest build I've seen to play because it requires the finesse of a Shatter build with using your Mind Rack and the staying power of Phantasms as far as the damage. So basically, the general way it works is you try to shatter your clones as often as possible, but you're really only using Mind Rack and sometimes Cry of Frustration, and if you absolutely have to interrupt something, you can use Diversion. And because of the Illusionary Persona trait, you yourself explode as well, so this makes you be able to have all these things as well, turning your 3 clones plus you into another clone. This entails that if you're up close like this, for example, when you Mind Rack the target with 0 clones out, you will explode on the target for a certain amount of damage. I just hit him for 1,000 damage with Mind Rack, as you can tell. So basically, that's how that works. So the thing about this build is it entails you doing both at the same time. The numbers look very, very similar in that you will be doing 20% more damage with Mind Rack. I'm sorry, that you'll be doing the 20-20-0-0-30 build. This is the exact same numbers as Shatter. There's another variation of this, but I found this one to be more superior, as in Phantasms are very powerful, but not 100% reliable. So basically, you're going this build. You're doing Mind Rack costs 20% more damage. This right here basically entails that you are going to be Mind Racking practically on cooldown, but you want to try to avoid Mind Racking your Phantasms when you have them out, i.e. your Swordsman and on your staff your Warlock. If you're using the Greatsword, you may want to be careful about your Berserker and stuff like that and try and leave them out as long as you can, depending on the situation. If they're just going to get killed in 1 second because of the AoE and you want to have them do their one attack and then Mind Rack after, that works too. But typically you want to try to save your Phantasms for 1 to 2 attacks if you can afford it. So you're grabbing the Mind Rack damage. You're basically doing Mind Rack on cooldown. You're going over here. You're grabbing Illusions inflict 15% more damage. This includes your clones hitting a little bit harder, which they don't hit for anything anyway. And then your Phantasms are hitting much harder. You do not have the Phantasms do 15% more damage, but that's fine. What you're gaining instead is you're getting Illusionary Persona. This entails you can do things like point blank Distortion for 1 second and have the immune buff. You can Diversion and whatchamacallit, and just completely like daze someone. Like a 100 Blades warrior will come up and daze you, explode all your clones with his 100 Blades, and you just bam, Diversion. Now you're good. You also have more damage with your Mind Rack up close. I've done the math. Basically, the 15% Phantasm damage is nice, but it's not necessarily worth the ability for you to explode yourself with all these abilities. You gain more utility as well as some good damage with Mind Rack when you're next to the target. So that's what I prefer. If you were to change this build up and go for the extra Phantasm, you would take out 25 points on Illusions and you would go straight into Inspiration instead, all the way up. You would probably grab the trait that allows you to remove a condition on heal, and then you would grab the other trait that I'm trying to think what it's called. When you shatter clones, you gain Vigor or whatever to you and your teammates. So those are the 2 things you would pick up there. So basically what this build looks like is I'm going to kill this really quick, just with some attacks. I'm going to summon a Swordsman here, and I'll show you a couple of ways that actually plays out. As far as damage, the Phantasm damage is extremely high. That 3,800 you just saw, that was from the Swordsman attack. They hit very hard on squishies, Thieves, other very squishy Mesmers, Glass Cannon Elementalist. You'll be hitting for upwards of 5k with your Swordsman alone, and if you have a lot of debuffs on a target, your Warlock will hit still upwards of 6k with this build. So it's very effective. So there's basically 2 approaches I found to it. I'm gonna go before I do that, I'm gonna go over the traits a little bit more. So you're basically gaining the Mind Rack damage, you're gaining the Illusion damage. Then you're going down here, you're gaining Phantasms, have Fury. You don't have the 25% clone thing, but that's fine. You don't necessarily need it. You have Blink, in my opinion, which is what I'm using. It's one of the best escapes in the game to be able to get away or to catch up to someone. For example, if I want to get to this target dummy and that's a running away player, I can blink towards him, hit 3, dodge roll for a clone, and then hit 2 and explode on his face type of thing. And then summon a Swordsman, he'll hit for that big, and I'll just Mind Rack, and they just all completely kill it from a very long way away. So you have very good chasing power as well as escapability with Blink, and that's really what I prefer. The obvious deceptive evasion, be able to create clones when your current position we dodge. That's necessary for any type of shattering build whatsoever. Going down here, and since Mind Rack is one of your biggest burst hits, I find that the 10% more Mind Rack using a Berserker Amulet, putting me up to the 47% plus 10 gives me the the 57% crit with 58% crit damage. Currently, Divinity Runes are still bugged to my knowledge. It says 2% crit damage, but it's really 3, so it's actually 58. Once that gets fixed, that'll go down to 52% crit damage, but it's 58 at the moment because they're still bugged. But basically, you're still using the Divinity Runes, you're still using Berserker, and this 10% crit enables you to have much higher crit damage with your Mind Rack. There really isn't too much else I've seen in this position. Let me try and get out of combat here, and I'll show you what else you could pick up, and I'll explain why I picked the ones I chose. So give me just 1 second. Alright, now I'm out of combat. Alright, so instead of the Mind Rack, you can pick up the Cry for Station grants Retaliation. You're hardly ever using it unless you know for 100% you have 3 clones out and 0 Phantasms. This entails that your Mind Rack is on cooldown for the next 4 or 5 seconds, plus, you know, anywhere, like you just use it, you can dodge roll a couple times, you can decoy, and then you can instantly Cry Frustration again. Trying to do it on your target or close to your target makes a big difference. But the thing about Retaliation on a glass cannon build, and I've had to explain this quite a bit, is you're trying to avoid getting hit, period. You don't want to get touched, you're a glass cannon. You want to do damage without taking damage. So Retaliation isn't something that's really great for you. This is why things on Guardians, Necromancers that are very tanky, Staff Tank Elementalists, things like that that are very tanky and that can actually afford taking a lot of damage, Retaliation is much better against, because they're doing damage back to the enemy player. Instead of just getting gibbed because of you trying to do damage back to them with Retaliation. It's just, in my opinion, on a glass cannon, Mesmer, it's just not that great. 3% more damage for your active illusions. This can benefit you some, but a lot of the times you're not sitting there with just 3 illusions setting up to gain the 9% bonus, period. For example, with my sword, you're really only ever using a Blurred Frenzy for your main attack damage. You are doing some damage with your auto attacks, maybe 2 or 3 afterwards, and then you may have to swap over to your staff. And I'll explain a little bit more of the swapping here in just a moment. But basically, it's not worth having the 3% compared to the 10%. Mind Rack is something that's basically your 2 biggest hits are going to be your Phantasm damage and your Mind Rack. You want to make sure that it crits. If it doesn't crit, you're losing out on damage. This will make you lose out on damage as well, but not necessarily as much in my opinion. I do like the 3% more, but it's if you have 3 clones out, or let's say 1 Phantasm and 2 clones type of thing, and you're Mind Racking, you're really only gaining 9% for your first clone, 3% for your next one, and you're also gaining, 9% for you exploding them in as well, but it's really not that much of a benefit compared to consistently Mind Racking for 10% more crit, in my opinion. So it's really up to you. It's more of a preference thing, but I prefer the other. As this is not a full-blown Shatter build, you're not relying 100% on your Shatters to do your damage, you don't necessarily need this trait. Now, as this trait's very handy, in a lot of situations, you could pick this up, but I think as long as you're popping your Distortion and your Mind Rack properly, you can use things like Cry for Station and Diversion if you absolutely feel you need to, or if you really only have like 3 clones. If a Guardian you see is using his Book Elite and he's trying to full heal and you're like, oh fuck that, you can blink on top of his face and then Diversion point blank daze him type of thing, provided he doesn't have stability. Pay attention to buffs. So you may want to drop a Null Field on that first and then daze, so you do want to pay attention to buffs on the targets you're using. So that's another thing you could pick up. It also helps, like for example, if against a thief or another strong class that's going to burst you down very fast, you can get just get like a couple of clones out really quick by dodge rolling, popping Diversion, getting up in their face afterwards. Or I'm sorry, not Diversion, Distortion. So you can get a couple of clones. Let's say you have a warrior on you or a Nicker or something, and then have a 4-second immunity with Distortion very quickly. And then let's say they get you to 50% life. Now your Distortion will be up a second time for the fight. So it can be pretty effective. But I think it's too relied on you actually hitting 50% life. And sometimes, for example, if my Mind Rack has 2 seconds left, and this pops right after that, well, now it just saved me 2 seconds. It's not really that going to be a big of a deal. I would much rather prefer my Mind Racks all guaranteeing critting in almost every encounter I come into in the first place. Even if I'm just standing back, and let's say I'm just even if I'm just standing back and I'm just like sitting back here and there's a big brawl going on over here and I'm trying to avoid it, I'm just summoning some clones, things like that. Well, that didn't work because I'm not in range, but you get the point. If I'm just trying to shatter from max range, I want my Mind Racks to crit. I don't want them to not crit. So having that 57% chance to me is much more beneficial. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people have been asking me about Phantasm Haste. Phantasm recharge 20% faster, as I'm picking this up as a Shatter / Phantasm build. The reason why I'm not picking this up is because as I said earlier in the video, Phantasms are not something you can rely on 100%. They're nice for their one attack typically, and then you can shatter them after. The Swordsman is kind of a different thing in its own, as it will basically attack once every, I think it's like 4 or 5 seconds, compared to the Warlock attacking like once every 7 or 6. And then the Duelist on the pistol attacking once every 7 seconds or 6 as well. So it's really lowering those by 20% is really just making them attack faster. When this says Phantasms recharge 20% faster, a lot of people think that it actually makes the summon summons. For example, right here it says 12 seconds. Makes that summon faster. This is not the case. This trait right here says illusion summoning skills recharge 20% faster. This means to summon them, it recharges faster. This, on the other hand, is worded phantasms recharge 20% faster. That means if you saw a phantasm and you were playing through the phantasm's eyes, if they had a skill bar, it would look something like a number 1, and that would be it. And their number 1 ability would be that one big attack that they launch at someone, and let's say it has its 6-second cooldown. You would take 20% off of that 6-second cooldown, and that's it. It's not that great. It's much more reliable to have something like what I'm using currently, which is the bouncing attacks have 1 additional bounce. I'm going to show you exactly what that does on a target. In a 1v1, this basically gives you a lot of downtime, burst, straight up, strong damage. So let me show you what it looks like without the trait, and then I'll show you what it looks like with the trait. So let me just put it onto something completely different here. So now this entails that if you had a pistol offhand, your extra bounce on your stun would be the fourth hit would basically it would hit this target, and then a fourth one, and the fourth one over here or whatever would be 1 stack of confusion. It's kind of meh for a pistol, but for a staff, it's probably the absolute best. It's also decent for a greatsword, as it'll make your greatsword bounce at an additional time. But what was I trying to do here? Okay, so basically without the bouncing trait, your staff will bounce to the target and then back to you, and it looks something like this. So that's just one attack. So look, bounce to the target, put vulnerability on him, bounce back to me, it gave me whatever buff it gave me. I'll do it again, and that's basically the gist of it. Now currently this trait's bugged, and as you see here, I'm going to summon a clone. Now the clone does the same thing. It attacks, and it bounces back to me, attacks, bounces back to me, attacks, bounces back to me. It's still critting, and every crit applies a bleeding. Well, if he crits that 5 damage crit, bam, 11. There's a bleed for that crit. So let me just pop this distraction here. Alright, so basically, the reason why I feel that trait is so good is even in AoE fights. Now, currently, as I said, it's bugged. The extra bounce will not benefit your clones at the moment. It is a bug. It is known. It's actually written down on the Mesmer forum somewhere. That it should be applying to your clones as well and making their attacks bounce 1 additional time as well. This means that a potential, later on down the line, when that does get fixed, a potential staff condition build may be viable. Something like double staff and just summoning tons and tons of clones, having them consistently double bounce. Now, with the double bounce trait, what you're about to see is I'm going to shoot it, it's going to fly from me, hit to the golem, bounce back to me, buff me, and then hit the golem once more. This entails that in a 1v1 fight versus, say, a necro, a warrior, sometimes an engineer, unless they have a bunch of turrets out or something, will basically double hit them. So I'd hit them for 265, bounce back to me, back to him for 560. This applied vulnerability and bleeding. Now if you're sitting here doing this over and over and over for a few seconds, you're just going to be seeing numbers flying, as well as tons of debuffs. This entails that your staff auto attacks actually do a strong amount of damage. So that's why I chose this trait, is for the ability to do a strong amount of damage with just your staffs. Let me finish this guy off and I'll show you what it looks like with quickness. So I'm gonna kill the golem. I'm gonna pretend that it is one tough enemy, and it's not. I'm gonna kill it with my initial combo. So my initial combo might start off something like this. I'll summon my swordsman duelist. I'll come over here, dodge roll for a clone. I actually wasn't in combat, so I didn't get a clone there. I am not in combat now, but I will come up in here and hit it. I'll mind rack it, do some damage, back off for a second, swap over to my staff. I'll drop. I'm gonna wait till it spawns because technically there's still a player there. I'm gonna pop Chaos Storm. And you're going to see me doing a ton of damage. So Chaos Storm, Chaos Armor because they're shooting me. I'll summon my Warlock. I'll teleport backwards here in just a moment. Dodge roll backwards for Chaos Armor again. Now you see I have 3 clones out, and they're just constantly wrecking the guys. The Warlock hit him really hard. The 3 clones are doing tons of bleeds, tons of dots, and my auto attacks are hitting twice as hard. Now, if I have Time Warp down and I'm standing in Time Warp, look at the damage and how fast it actually hits. I'm just launching these missiles, and you're just seeing consistently bounce back and forth. They're doing tons and tons and tons of damage here, and all I have to do is turn around now, and all the bleeds that are stacked up on them, which 8 stacks of bleeds for 69 a tick, are going to basically finish them off. So the bouncing trait, basically enough said, it is very, very strong in that aspect, and it gives you a lot more damage with your staff than a lot of people give it credit for. And last but not least, the illusionary persona trait, I explained this earlier. This enables you to just explode on yourself as a clone and just do shit tons of damage with that, as well as any other utilities you may need with it. Just the 1 second immune, the daze, cry frustration, just another one type of thing, but you'd have to be up in melee range for it. So that's really the only disadvantage, is that you have to be up in melee range for it, but typically that's not too hard of the case. A lot of times you can summon your thing, dodge roll, get over here, and now I'm exploding 1, 2, and me exploding on them as well, so I did an extra 1,000 damage because of me instead of having only 2 there. And keep in mind, 99% of the time I will not always do that. For example, if I had 2 clones out of here, I would just hit decoy for another stealth, and then I would hit mine rack and teleport away for a third one. That would give me extra damage off of a third clone, and granted I'm using myself, but it's there for burst, so sometimes I may not need it. But it's more guaranteed damage. I'll show you basically exactly what I mean. I'm going to theory craft that my decoy is up. So I'm going to start off in staff. I'm going to hit my staff. I'm going to auto attack. I'm going to dodge roll, swap over to my 3, teleport, and now I'm going to my pop decoy. I will have a third clone up, hit 2, and mine rack. And basically a lot of damage was just done between the extra clone, having 3, and mine rack, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's a lot of different openers you can really do. Some of them might look like this. You just summon your Phantasm. You can walk up with your block. Hopefully they'll hit you. If they don't hit you, then you can just shoot a daze at them. You can hit your 2, walk up, just kind of walk up to them, screw around, teleport on them, get 3, and blow up. Meanwhile, your swordsman's still hitting them. And if you're lucky, it'll hit them twice, depending on how long the fight is and depending on who you're fighting. A lot of times, if you're fighting, say, another Shatter Mesmer, they may be able to AoE your Phantasms down. But if you summon them and basically play to your advantages, you can basically sit back and let them just do a shit ton of damage. So like for example, if I'm kiting around a little bit and I need to kite, I can leave my Phantasms out and not shatter them, but then the second I see them drop their guard, I can teleport in with blink and then mine rack on their face and just do a lot of damage with that. So it's very, very handy, and that's basically how the build is worked for the most part. But as far as another opener, it may look something like this. You attack with your auto staff, you kind of hover around the 1200 range, you can dodge roll backwards, dodge roll forwards again, you have your guys attack. You can either wait for your energy to come up, or you can I keep saying that, I apologize. Teleport backwards on top of them, mine rack, dodge roll away. Because of your energy runes, you gain so much. It's just so many different variables and combinations you can apply. I'm gonna probably list 3 really big things that you have to pay attention to here. The biggest things you have to pay attention to in this build is you have to pay attention to your Phantasms. You want to avoid shattering them at all costs. If I start off with summoning a Phantasm like this, swapping to staff, summoning another Phantasm, I'm probably going to run away and play the kiting game. I'm going to run around a little bit, wait for them to do some of their damage, then I'm going to dodge roll for a third clone, blink in and mine rack, and have everyone explode and do a shit ton of damage. So that's basically it. You want to let your Phantasms do maybe 1 to 2 attacks. If they're just trying to chase you around and they're leaving the Phantasms alone, by all means let them do damage. They will destroy a target if you let them. The other approach would be something like just summoning a bunch of clones and then mine racking all over their face, and then swapping over, say, to your staff, summoning a Phantasm, Chaos Armor, doing a shit ton of damage with that, and you just have so much versatility. This is basically, as I call it, I'm going to call it the Shantasm build, because it's basically a Shatter plus a Phantasm build in one. You do a shit ton of damage with your Phantasms, as well as your shattering for mine rack, and your mine rack hits really hard. So let me give a small demonstration on just mine rack alone. Dodge roll, clone backwards, boom, mine rack, my 800, 1800, 1900, another 800, and that's just that plus a few debuffs. So it's quite a bit of damage. It's pretty insane. You don't have a whole lot of condition damage, so you don't really need it. Only have 360. That's where the bleeds are hitting for like 69 from. As well as, whenever I shatter, my illusions give me might, so that's extra power there. And then the shatters give confusion as well. But basically that's pretty much how the build works. You're just doing some attacking, some dodge rolling, getting in combat. You can blink, hit 2, teleport mine rack, hit 3, swap over to my sword. I have a clone on it now. I can dodge roll this way to get in combat again, decoy immediately, teleport, hit 2, and then have 3 clones out, or cry frustration. And then immediately after, as you saw just 1 second ago, I won't be able to actually look at this, but I could run away after that, summon a duelist, or I'm sorry, a swordsman, summon this, and start off in my staff and just do a lot of damage this way now. And then, let's say after I summon my swordsman, because I just mine racked, I did my 2, I would probably have about 3 or 4 seconds left on my mine rack. After I summon my warlock, this entails that I would be sitting back, let them get their 1 or 2 attacks off, walking up close, kind of hovering around. As soon as I get in within, the 300-ish range, which is about here, I can explode on their face like this and do a lot of damage with mine rack again. So it's very, very versatile. This build has quite a bit. I really, really like it, and so far this is the best build I have seen with a Mesmer. It is not necessarily the end-all to be-all builds, but so far in high tournament play, this is probably the build I will be running, as well as the strongest build I've seen so far. This basically gives you, okay, I'm going to explain one thing. The difference between a Shatter and a Phantasm build is, the Shatter build is you're basically shitting out tons and tons of clones. This entails your dodge rolling, your decoying, you're mine racking, you're whatchamacallit, shitting out another clone, you're dodge rolling, you're cry frustrationing, stuff like that. So it can play like a shatter build in the aspect of just doing that, and then immediately after you use those two things, and they're still saying cooldown, you're able to do all kinds of other things, right? So right after cry frustrationing, your phantasms do their damage, you can then mine rack again, and it's basically, that's how it works. But the difference is, with the shatter build, you're shitting out tons of clones and just exploding them. You don't have that much damage with the phantasms. You do want to let them hit, but they will not hit as hard without that 15% damage trait, so that's one really big thing I picked up. And that's how that works. The reason why the numbers are pretty much the same is because of Illusionary Persona. As a hybrid build, you have to have the 15% damage here. It would be nice to have the 15% damage here, but I think Persona outweighs it, in my opinion, as well as other people that I've talked to. So, that's pretty much how that works. So the Shatter build is just exploding. The Phantasm build, on the other hand, plays something similar to this, whereas you summon a Phantasm, you summon another Phantasm, and you do not touch your first 3 Shatters. You don't even touch them. You're basically running around kiting, like, oh, I'm going this way, oh, I'm going this way. You do not have the trait that makes it so when you dodge roll, you create a clone, so there's not a whole lot of Shatter potential there. But you do have slightly more Phantasm damage because these 20 points here, or at least this 5 points, this 10 points here isn't necessary, and that can go up into here. You wouldn't be grabbing Persona because you'd be playing a Phantasm build, and so on and so forth. But basically, it merges the two builds of the damage consistency of a Phantasm build with your Phantasms consistently hitting very hard, but not necessarily on command, and not necessarily as bursty as you want. Whereas a Shatter build, a strong damaging opener may look something like this. You get the clones out, you hit really hard, you shatter, you get a bunch of minor arc damage, and that's kind of that right there is kind of the damage of a Shatter build. You have your Phantasm hit really hard, you walk up, you mine rack with your 2 and do a bunch of damage. The damage of a Phantasm build, on the other hand, looks something along the lines of this. Now you saw how close and dangerous that was to get into a big brawl type of fight, but a Phantasm build is basically summon one thing, summon another, do some auto attacks, stay at range, kite away. If I have a thief on me right here, I would teleport this way, maybe decoy, let my Phantasms do as much damage as possible. But this build, as you're noticing, basically merges the two. It gives you the utility from Persona. It gives you the ability to create as many clones as you need for whatever you need with dodge rolling. Using double energy runes at the moment, I'm using energy on my one-hander and then energy on my staff. And then on my off-hander, I'm currently using Bloodlust. This is 10 power each time you kill a foe. This one isn't set in stone. You can use a couple of different things here. You could use 5% crit. You could use Force. Force might be the better choice. There's a couple of other things, but basically, you do not want to use anything that has a cooldown on it. I've recently figured out that any time that one of your sigils go on cooldown, it puts the rest of them on cooldown as well for that long. So for example, if I'm using fire in my offhand for the blast, and I walk up to a target and I do something like this, I'll dash to the target, I'll do my dodge roll for my clone, I'll hit decoy for whatever reason, teleport, I'll mine rack. Now I'm going to hit 2, and let's say I hit 2, bam, it just fire blasted for 800, right? I'm just theory crafting, it just fire blasted for 800. Now immediately after all my shit's on cooldown, I'm going to swap over to my staff. Now as I swap over to my staff, because the fire one is on cooldown because I just used it from hitting my 2, the staff, it puts the staff one on cooldown as well. Apparently all sigils that you're using, no matter what, have an internal cooldown of whatever the cooldown of the other sigils are. So for example, these ones have a 9-second cooldown, and your weapon swap is on a 10-second cooldown. So this means I can actually weapon swap every single 10 seconds for 100% sure, and still gain the energy. Whereas if I have fire in my offhand, and I use my 2, and it does a fire blast, I'm going to go fire blast, boom, it just hit for 800, I swap over. My energy sigil on my staff is going to still be on cooldown from the 5 seconds on my fire. So this will screw me over in the long run and not give me the energy, or endurance. I'm calling it energy because they're very similar words. It will not give me the endurance because the fire is still on cooldown, and thus it puts the rest of mine on cooldown as well. But because of the 9-second internal cooldown from one energy to another, and the 10-second weapon swapping timer, it works perfectly, so those work there. So that's why on your offhand you basically want something static. I'm going to be updating my builds on my stream page. So currently I'm using something with Bloodlust, and I'm just trying to fight as much as I can, stay alive, and this between like the Shatter build and the Phantasm build and things like Null Field and Blink and Decoy, this build has quite a bit of survivability just in the tricks of the trade itself. Not even in being tankiness. As you see, I only have 976 toughness, and I'm very glass cannony. So that's basically how this build works. There's the few openers I showed you, some of the reasons why things work the way they do. The Phantasm power of it is just unreal. the team fight of it is very, very strong. You having a block is very powerful as well. You know, I'm just letting my Phantasms kill this, swapping over here, hitting this. I'm going to Mind Rack, dodge roll. Dodge roll again. I have one clone out, so I'm going to wait the 6 seconds while it kills it. If it's really low like that, you know, 10%, I just use Cry of Frustration to finish it off because I can, and I know it's going to die. And then I can, if for some reason it heals up, well, at that point, 1 second later, I would be able to teleport backwards, swap back over to my other thing, summon this, teleport at him, hit 2, and then Mind Rack once more time, or something like that. So there's so much consistency and so much high burst with this damage. You can really catch people off guard. I've actually been able to kill a lot of bunker specs with this. Staff Ellies I still have a little bit of trouble with. I've only really ever seen one, but they still give tons of trouble between all the AoE and stuff. But things like Engineer Bunkers, I've had much easier times with because of the consistency of damage as well as a high burst output that I can do with Mind Rack. It's just an awesome build all around. So far I found this basically is my end-all to be all build, or something to this aspect. I'm still fine-tuning it, still figuring out exactly how it plays, but basically it is the hardest build so far I've seen to date. The Shatter build is basically just shitting out clones and using your Shatters on cooldown. The Phantasm build is you summon Phantasms and AFK. This combines the two in the fact that you're trying to summon clones and shatter your clones while not shattering your Phantasms. You can shatter your Phantasms, it's not bad, but typically you don't want to shatter 2 Phantasms. Shattering 1 is fine. For example, if you're starting on an opener, I'll do it on this meeting just for the hell of it. If you're starting on here with the swordsman and then you're just walking to the target, or he gets closer to you, you can then dodge roll and then do this and then shatter for like some bursts and then swap over to your staff and have your warlock plus a couple of other clones and continue to do that. But you want to try to avoid shattering your Phantasms if you can afford it. For example, something like that may look like this, starting with a staff, dodge rolling forward, turning around, 2 backwards, Mind Rack. And then you can summon your 3, Chaos Storm behind them, Chaos Armor if you need to, summon your 5, and now you have 2 Phantasms out. That would be in theory sitting here. And then you have your 3 that you can dash towards the same target, dodge roll for another clone or whatever, just because. Swap places and do a shit ton of damage with the 2 Phantasms that are out, waiting the extra 2 to 3 seconds till Mind Rack is up. They're going to get another attack off, or at least the swordsman will get one more attack off, giving you so much consistent damage in between Mind Racks. It makes it very powerful. So that's basically how you play this build. That's some of the combinations. It's not really set in stone yet, but that's basically the gist of it. So use your best judgment per fight. Sometimes you may want to summon if you're fighting something that you need to get an advantage on early, you can summon a Phantasm, 1200, summon another Phantasm at 1200, dodge roll away for a clone, and just kind of go hide for a minute. Do the best you can to hide while your Phantasms kill it. If it's something you think you can take head on, try and start off with a Mind Rack. But otherwise, if you need the advantage and damage, you may want to just summon a couple Phantasms and then go from there and damage afterwards. So yeah, that's how it is. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be streaming. My streaming schedule is on my short bios in the stream just below. All my links and everything like that, at least for this specific build, and my link to my stream will be in the video in the description just below. I thank you all for watching, and take care.